Hello, I'm Bruce Harters, and this is Voices in the Village. Today we have with us David Deering, a multitasker to say the least, here in Laguna Woods. One of Dave's expertise, and you can ask anybody who knows him, is photography. And today we're going to talk about photography from a learned point of view. David, thanks for coming by and welcome to Voices in the Village.
Great, thanks for having me, Bruce. Good to see you again.
Nice to see you. Well, the other day, I guess you gave a course for your camera club, and we're going to take some of the main points from that course and talk about it for all of you out there that have cameras and are always trying to figure out how to take a better picture. So I'm going to ask the question, and then you come up with the answer. How's that?
Sounds like a plan, Bruce.
Okay, so the first question is, what is this composing the shot all about?
Okay, composing the shot is that when you look through the lens of a camera, whether it's a point and shoot, okay, or a DSLR, right, which is a more expensive and camera which can perform a lot more functions, or some of the new bridge cameras which look like a DSLR but act as a point and shoot and have a fixed lens, okay. When you look either through the live view, which is the screen here, okay, or look through the viewfinder on the DSLR, you're going to see what your picture is going to look like, okay? It's not going to be exactly what you might see in the scene unless you're shooting with a full frame camera, but pretty much composing the shot means that you are looking through the viewfinder and looking at what you want to have a picture of, what memory you'd like to keep, okay? And there's some tips. You want to use perhaps what's called the rule of thirds, whether you divide the shot horizontally and vertically, and then put something of interest in those points where they intersect.
I don't quite understand that.
Okay, if I want to take a picture of a landscape,
okay,
and there's something that I want to focus on. I don't want to necessarily put that right in the center.
Might be a tree or something like that?
It could be a tree, it could be a bird,
okay.
It could be something that you want in the picture.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so if you divide the lines horizontally in your mind and vertically in your mind, although many cameras have a grid which will demonstrate that for you, you want to put something interesting where those lines intersect.
I see.
It's called the rule of thirds. Third horizontally and third vertically. Okay.
Sort of targeting in.
Yes, exactly. And there are some other composition tips. You don't want to shoot down on flowers, for example. You want to get a nice angle on the flowers.
Yeah.
You also want to think about leading the viewer through the photo with what's called leading lines.
Now,
it's
what does
very
that
useful.
mean? Leading them through the viewer.
Okay. If you have a picture of a landscape, for example.
Yeah.
And you want the viewer to be drawn into the picture, okay, and then perhaps led out of the picture. For example, maybe there's a path. In Laguna Woods, there are lots of great places to walk.
Right.
So if I'm taking a picture of someone walking down that path, right, I want that person to be in the picture.
Right.
But I also want that person to look as though the person is moving through the picture. So I may have the path leading the person into the picture and then leading the person out of the picture.
Creating a sort of an idea of a movement.
Exactly.
Without it being a movement.
Exactly. Okay. And of course, it's very nice not to have your subject in the middle. Okay. You want some balance. Okay. Of course, if you're talking about portraits, that might be different.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess some people do specify portraits over landscapes and all. So I suppose there are different rules in like portraiture than there is in landscape?
Different rules, different exposures, different settings, different lighting conditions, depending on the shot that you're looking for.
Okay. So the next question, David, is what is the importance of lighting?
Lighting is very interesting and the most important thing in photography from my point of view. We take pictures mostly during the day, sometimes at holiday get-togethers where families are together. We often take people smiling or standing in a group, okay, although candids are much more interesting in the long term. Lighting is very interesting in that lighting comes from everywhere. We're sitting in this very bright studio because we need a lot of light for what we're doing here.
That's right.
And in the camera, there are a couple of ways to capture light. All right. One is through what's called the aperture. All right. And if you want to let in more light, you open the aperture. It's like the eye.
Yeah, opening up the eye.
Exactly. And then, of course, there's how long that you want that camera picture exposed. And that's in camera setting. It's 1/25th of a second, up to maybe a sporting event where someone is running or throwing a ball, where you might shoot up to a 500th or a 1,000th of a second to capture the stillness of that image. But lighting is the most important, okay? No question about that.
Well, that business of, say, a football game over a flower, how would lighting differ in those two things?
Well, it depends on the source of your light.
Okay.
If you're shooting at a football game that's at night, of course you have all the lights that would light the field. If you're shooting it during the day, the lighting conditions would be different.
Yeah.
Now, the football players are most likely moving.
That's right.
Perhaps you're shooting a picture of a son or grandson or relative or a friend, and they're most likely moving. So you're going to want to use a quicker shutter speed.
They need to be still.
They need to be still, exactly. Although you want to make sure that it looks as though they're moving.
It's this thing we were talking about before about moving, but it wasn't moving.
Right, exactly, exactly.
Well, in looking at, for sure, one thing is you don't shoot into the sun, right?
You do not.
I mean, that's a pretty basic
No.
one. We all learned that somewhere along the line.
Right, but there are lighting techniques that can compensate for that, which we could talk about when you ask me about software.
Okay. Well, I'll get to that.
Okay.
All right. Now we're going to talk about camera settings.
Okay. I already mentioned aperture, and I
Yeah.
did mention briefly the settings. The aperture is the amount of light that the camera takes in. The shutter speed is how fast that picture is taken. All right. For sports, taken faster. The flower you could take maybe down to a 60th of a second. But when you get below a certain level, you're going to want to use a tripod, okay, to make sure that there is no camera shake. Most cameras now have what is called vibration reduction or some sort of image stabilization, which helps the shake, okay?
Right.
But you almost never get shake, you won't get shake if you put it on a tripod, all right? And then use a cable release or a remote release or the timer, right?
Okay.
I took a picture the other day, handheld at 5 seconds, okay? And that didn't come out very well.
That didn't do well. Okay, using software to improve your photos.
Right, there are many software programs out there. Picasa is a free one, which is picasa.com, and you can load it in there. It does all sorts of things. You can crop, you can straighten, you can lighten.
How do you load the software in?
You go to picasa.com, click on the link, okay, and step-by-step instructions.
They'll walk you through it.
Show you how to do it. It's very intuitive, and it's a free, simple program. Of course, there's also Photoshop Elements, Photoshop CS, Photoshop Lightroom, lots and lots of ways to improve your photos in what we call post-production.
So, what do you think most people use the software for in trying to improve what? What are they mostly trying to improve?
It depends. Your image can be sharpened, it can be cropped. If I have things inside my photograph that I don't want, maybe something that I didn't see when I was composing the shot, I can crop that right out. I can crop it this way and this way. Just as people do when they put pictures in newspapers and magazines.
Gotcha.
Okay?
So finally, in the old question box, keeping and sharing. I know you must share and keep a lot of stuff.
I do a lot of photography for the Old Pros, the theater group to which I belong. And I have thousands and thousands of pictures. And every once in a while I get a request, do you have a picture of so-and-so in that show? Bruce and I actually worked together in a show.
That's right.
Okay?
Well, I remember one of those sort of like end of year things you came in.
Yes.
And it was fascinating the way you walked through all of the productions of that year, you know, and all the people. And and for not being a motion picture,
right,
it was like one.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. And that's a software program called ProShow. They have ProShow Gold and ProShow Producer. You can use lots of different transitions, music behind it, okay,
Sounds great.
to share. because that's what you need to do with your pictures. You got them, you have to share them. I have a friend who takes wonderful pictures and leaves them in his camera.
Oh my goodness.
Doesn't do us any good.
No. Well, that pretty wraps up what I would call part one of a two-part series with you. The next part we're going to talk about is the Camera Club and your travels, your various exciting travels.
Okay.
So for you out there, I hope you come back soon to hear what David has to say about that. In the meantime, I'm Bruce Harders with Voices in the Village. You come back now.